Alright guys, Zachman18 here. Welcome back to the WTZM TV channel 18 Superstation. It is time to continue on with our Let's Play of Apollo Justice Ace Attorney on the Nintendo DS. We are on the fourth and final case of the game, Turnabout Succession. We are going to be heading into our first day in court. Let's do this. Yesterday we actually checked out a new feature of the game. We did some a new scanning feature, which was really cool. So let's jump into it. Good morning.
So you're Vera, right? I'm Trucy Wright. That's right with a W, but not right? We're on your side. You can tell us anything, please. Good morning.
She speaks.
Not bad. But I think you do better with a little smile, you know? You're so pretty. You need to sell yourself. You know?
Trucy, let's take it easy for starters. Oh.
Thank you for taking my case.
Okay, well, that's a start, I guess. There she goes with the nail polish again.
That's great, really. It's so cultured. Want to try? Ooh, really?
Ah, girls. The victim Drew Mission was a forger, and a stolen painting was found in his studio. A life of crime, really, and maybe one that led to his death. Alrighty. Let's do this. And looks like Gavin's the prosecutor again.
Well, we will now begin the trial of Vera Mission.
Is the judge okay? His voice is all raspy and he's looking around all nervous like.
The repercussions of today's trial will most likely be felt for a long time, and may indeed alter our legal system forever.
Today is a test of the jurist system, and the first step toward a new order in our courts. Daddy's secret mission. The jurists will function like a jury. It is hoped that inclusion will help the courts better reflect the people's will.
Why aren't there any jurists in the courtroom?
3 closed-circuit cameras watch this courtroom at all times. The jurists have access to everything that transpires. Jurists, Judge Well and Judge Cool.
Now see here, Prosecutor Gavin, I was going to say that.
My apologies, Herr Judge.
Jurists, Judge, today's trial coolly, if you would be so kind.
The jurists are unbound by the letter of the law. They don't affect the trial with evidence, but by their feelings. And we're about to find out just what effect they are going to have.
Very well, Prosecutor Gavin, the details of the case, if you would.
The victim is the painter Drew Mission, who was killed in his own studio. His coffee was poisoned. By whom, you ask? By none other than the defendant, Vera Mission.
There wasn't any poison in the coffee.
Tongue, someone has been doing their homework. Indeed, poison was not present in the coffee, but on the mug itself.
The mug? Residue was found on the rim, I see.
The autopsy report describes the manner of our victim's death.
The court accepts this as evidence.
Alright.
According to this report, the victim's death was caused by atroquinine poisoning.
A chemical compound that does not occur naturally. Lethal dosage is a mere 0.002 milligram. A touch of atroquinine in the body is a touch of the Reaper's scythe.
Very well, Prosecutor Gavin, you may present your witness.
I offer you today a simple man for a simple case. A man who witnessed the murder in its entirety.
That journalist, no doubt. Oh boy.
The witness will now state his name and occupation.
Right. Well, for starters, my name's Mark Burchell. My job is the lone observer of the world. In other words, a freelance journalist, right? If you don't mind, I'd like to say something here for the record.
Yes, Mr. Burchell?
I dislike conclusions, specifically the jumping to aspect of conclusions. Preconceptions make part sandbox of endless desert waste. End quote. But you are a journalist. You said so yourself yesterday. Well, that's true, yes. But you must understand, I stand before you today, a man with a dream. I'm offering you my testimony in exchange for exclusive rights to this story. Scoop turns Mr. Burchell into that, Mr. Burchell. End quote.
Let's hear your testimony then, shall we?
A simple case, eh, Gavin? For me, the jury is still out. Jeez. Might be my favorite character in the whole game. I visited the studio around 9 o'clock that night to do the interview. The first outsider to enter the atelier, journalistic history made. End quote. His daughter brought his coffee right after we started. And you know what happened next. Star falls. End quote. No one else entered the room besides us the whole time.
That does sound like a simple case. Unless you were the one who poisoned him.
What are you saying, Judge?
Need I remind you, the cameras are rolling today. I felt the need to be a bit dramatic.
You didn't do it, didn't you? me do a thing like that? Come on, that's newspaper making the news, end quote. Or even contemporary witch hunt, end quote. Oh my god. I know, wild accusations, rock courtroom, end quote. Ha ha ha. Rock indeed. Prosecutor Gavin sure looks like he's having fun. I'm so happy for him.
Very well, Mr. Justice. Your cross-examination, please.
Alright, start pressing. Hold it! 9 o'clock at night? Isn't that a little late for an interview? If the great painter Drew Misham says come at 9 o'clock, believe you me, I go at 9 o'clock. The first thing has to turn out last interview with such a prolific painter. Right, can you tell us what it was like when you arrived? Hold it! You were the first reporter ever in Drew's studio? Posterity will look back at that night as a turning point in journalistic history. A basically insignificant step for all mankind. But a giant step for that Russell guy, end quote. If no one on the outside ever had access to the studio, then it would serve to reason that the deed was done by an insider.
By which he means Vera did it.
So how did this epoch-making interview go?
Hold it! Would you mind being a little more specific? Oh, let me tell you, I enjoy cuppa. In fact, it all began when I was in 3rd grade. No, wait, 4th grade. That's not what I meant.
I believe I know what Half Full Head is driving at. This coffee the victim was served. Did anyone other than the defendant touch it?
Right, that's what I was going to say, really.
Well, now, if you got a question to ask, you best straight up ask it. That's what I tell all the new recruits several times if necessary. Right for a grade schooler. That's my motto, which isn't to say I can only write grade school stuff.
Who touched the coffee?
Dunno. I was in the back looking at the studio's equipment when she served it. And what happened next?
Hold it. What's this about a star falling?
Star falls, huh? It's like an old telegram. Send money over. Is that what you don't know? That's like a journalism code word. An important percentage passes away. A star falls, get it? But there's no gravity in space, is there? I wouldn't think stars could fall, really.
Does this matter?
Oh boy, this is good stuff, good stuff. How about star breaks? Nah, lacks punch. I know. Star dies. Nah, lacks imagination. Of course, you could go with Drew dies. Straight, to the point, I like it.
I think we need to hear about something a little more substantial. The moment of death, Brussels coffee, or the Stars coffee. Okay, Brussels coffee has nothing to do with it. Moment of death we already got on the autopsy. Let's go with the Stars coffee. You say Mr. Misham had the coffee too, but did you actually see him drink the coffee?
Of course. He who sees it wins, but he who says it wins bigger. End quote. I live in a man sees dog eat dog and writes about it world. Yet? I guess I can't say I saw him drink it really. He had one so-called sip, if that. Man puts lips to mug, drinks. End quote.
Poison is quite virulent, I hear.
My stomach did a so-called somersault. Since I gulped down that coffee without so much as a second glance at it. Wait, maybe something's there. Some kind of so-called trick. Anyone want to venture a guess for the record?
Does this guy have a pause button?
Well, Mr. Justice, did you find that testimony valuable?
Why not? The victim drank his coffee, then immediately fell over.
Oh, yes, you can go to press with that one.
Your Honor, this is a vital piece of information. Please add it to the testimony.
Very well. The witness will add this to his testimony.
Vital, right. Alright. He had one sip of that, the next moment he was on the floor. Alright, so what do we present on this one? Attorney's badge, no. Ticket, no. Envelope, no. There's card, no. Traces, coffee mug, traces of the slow-acting deadly poison atropine were found on the rim. Wait a second. So, the poison is still on the rim, and he said he had a sip. So why would the poison still be there if he already took a sip of the coffee? Objection! You know what I have a problem with? A particular property of the poison used. Atropine.
Oh, Prosecutor Gavin was quite clear about the poison. Sorry. A lethal dosage of 0.002 milligrams paralyzes the central nervous system. If you drank that, even you, Mr. Justice, would be reduced to a quivering pile.
Why are you using me as an example? Unfortunately, we weren't told everything. There was a vital omission in Prosecutor Gavin's information.
An omission?
Atropine is as virulent as he says, but death doesn't come upon ingestion, not immediately. That's because atropine is slow-acting.
Oh.
I thought it was because it was still on there, according to one forensic scientist. It's one of the most virulent poisons, but is absorbed into the body astonishingly slowly. It takes at least 15 minutes from the time of ingestion for adverse effects to show. If we suppose that the moment Mr. Misham sipped the coffee was when he sealed his fate, then he would still have had time left to enjoy his last cup of joe.
Order! Order! What's the meaning of this? If what the defendant says is correct, why the contradicts the entire testimony we've just heard?
Or defense, I should say. Well, Mr. Brushel, anything to say on the record? Slow acting. SLOWACT. It was virulent, alright. Even then, it already had been digging its closet to the journalist. He's working on a scoop. It's Brushel, Jean. Hey, Brushel. Let's take a trip back down memory lane. Huh? Did the victim really die the instant he took a sip? Think it over. This is vital. You know what I think? I think that was a not-so-subliminal suggestion, end quote. I mean, it does cause a problem if he died when you say he died. I would be forced to say off Wendersion to my simple case, and you would be forced to say for the article. Come again? You can't write a story based on conjecture, can you? And as the case drags on, other reporters will pick up the scent, and you'll be forced to kiss your exclusive scoop goodbye. Scoop? Scoop! Look, wait, just wait a second, just 1 second.
We're waiting, out with it.
I think I just recalled the so-called important detail. A revival of recollection, end quote. A story survival, end quote.
Attorney utterly confused, end quote.
Actually, I didn't notice something when I visited the studio. I've heard of poison that takes its sweet time, see? And not what I've been saying for the last few minutes, apparently.
Mr. Brushel, are you saying you noticed something that explains what happened?
You bet I am. The antidote for a poisonous contradiction, end quote, you might say.
Or I still have no idea what you're talking about, end quote, I might say.
I figured it out, but only after an in-depth interview. See, thanks to my journalism skills, I know who poisoned that coffee. What?
Order!
As far as I can tell, the witness is standing by his testimony that Mr. Misham died the instant after he drank. Of course I'm standing by my testimony, and my dream of exclusive rights to this story. I suppose it was too much to hope for.
What was?
Of course he wouldn't choose a simple case, not him.
Him?
Phoenix Wright, who else? Actong, Herr Brushel. Report for us if you would. What is it that you noticed?
This court is a critical trial of the justice system. I'm afraid no room for doubt is permissible. You will testify to the court about what you noticed.
When I arrived at the studio, Mr. Misham was at his desk. He seemed to be writing a letter, but he quickly sealed the envelope. I thought nothing of it at the time, of course. Now that I think about it, what if he was writing a suicide note? What?
A suicide note?
Yes, he had this look on his face. Man's face inscrutable as a quadratic equation, end quote. Suicide? Poor Mr. Misham. But that means Vera's innocent.
Would someone commit suicide in the middle of an interview?
Oh.
Very well, you may begin your cross-examination.
Alright, Ben. Hold it!
Was there anyone at the studio other than Mr. Misham?
Well, his daughter Vera, of course.
Was anyone besides Mr. Misham and Vera present?
Not a single one. Not a cat, not a rat, not even a mouse.
The only person who didn't belong to that studio there was you, wasn't it, Mr. Brushel?
I know what you're doing. I know your game. Attorney uses classic Ramsden phenomenon ploy, end quote. If you intend to suggest that this reporter is a suspect, I'm sure you also intend to present evidence supporting that assertion, correct? In the meantime, let's move along, shall we? Hold it! Hold it!
So he put the letter away when he saw you.
Early reporter gets worm, end quote. That's my secret.
I'm not sure I follow.
It's the night of the interview. I arrive 15 minutes ahead of schedule. The handle turns, the door opens, and I barge in.
Are you sure that's okay to do? I mean, isn't that unlawful entry, really?
Mr. Misham, sir, seemed to think so. You should have seen him. He crammed his letter into that yellow envelope as fast as he could. I know a secret when I spot one, and that was one.
It does seem significant.
Wait, yellow envelope? No, it's red.
Well, Mr. Justice, I wonder. It does have the ring of something important.
Yes.
The defense finds this testimony vital, Your Honor. Very well, please add it to the testimony then.
Hey, why not? My account comes free of charge. It was a yellow envelope. I heard it was left at the crime scene. Got news for you, buddy. It's a red envelope.
Objection!
As it just so happens, there was a single letter in his desk drawer at the scene. It's in a red envelope. What? Oh my god! Prosecutor Gavin. Yes? Was a yellow envelope found at the scene of the crime? Unfortunately, no. But hair forehead. It's easy to mistake the color of an envelope. I guess. But not this envelope. You see, it was postmarked already, 7 years ago.
Well, Mr. Brushel?
I can explain that. Drew, right, he wanted to get that letter in an envelope, pronto. He let it on my side of my beady eyes, right? So he grabbed the nearest envelope and crammed away.
And what about the whole red and yellow envelope contradiction, chump? Well, Mr. Justice, have you anything to say to the witness's claim?
That night the victim put a letter he had been writing in a red envelope. Well, no, because he sealed it too, and he just like shoved it in there, because when we found it, it was already sealed up, I'm pretty sure. That's impossible. Ah, I like your expression. So full of confidence.
It's simple, really.
As it just so happens, the defense team investigated the contents of this envelope, with the assistance of a forensic scientist. What? Note that this letter is addressed to Drew Misham. Oh! Why would he address the letter to himself? Let alone send a suicide note to himself. I've been scooped!
Order! 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 Mr. Brushel, can you explain this to the court?
Oh my, how could I have forgotten? I suppose this happens to the best of us. Reporter gets old, forgets lots. End quote.
I'm still waiting for an explanation, Mr. Brushel.
Well, that's the thing, see? After he puts his letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something.
His desk drawer?
Yes, a stamp, a so-called postage stamp. End quote.
A stamp? Whatever for?
Well, to mail his letter, what else? And then, why yes, I think I saw him put it in his letterbox. Yes, it was a yellow envelope. And he put it in that box.
Well, apparently, this yellow letter has nothing to do with this case.
Oh, how I wish it did. Just think if that were a suicide note, what a story. Star writes suicide note in front of reporter. Falls. End quote.
As I was saying, that has nothing to do with this case. That said.
Yes, Your Honor.
It makes me wonder about the contents of that red envelope.
These are all the stuff that we figured out yesterday.
$100,000 is quite a good deal of money.
So this was from 7 years ago, Jean? So am I finished? Here, I mean finished here? I was thinking of, going home to start with writing. What? Sorry, I might be messaging some people here. Sorry. I hate to say what should be pretty obvious to anyone. But when you catch the scent of a story, you make that, rather unique face. Ah, come on! Attorney has active imagination, little else. End quote.
Even I noticed something, and my eyes aren't what they used to be. I'm starting to understand what all this perceiving stuff is about.
Judge's active imagination, end quote.
Please continue with your...
Oh, fudge. Sorry.
Tell us about the scent of a story.
Hey, I'm the one asking the questions here. Usually. Alright, the scent of a story. 1 second here, guys. 1 second here. This is what happens when I do this during recording. Okay. Actually, it took a bit of work to get a thumbs up on the interview. Reporter leverages story against his interview. End quote. The story concerned a certain case from 7 years ago. That red envelope probably had something to do with it. Say what you will, but Drew's talent was without compare.
So you threatened to go to press with this story. That's how you got your interview? Blackmail?
Well, yes. I mean, no. It wasn't exactly black. I mean, I'm not,
Something wrong, Mr. Brushel?
Look, this is my story. My tidbit. Journalist's info is livelihood. End quote.
I see.
Well, you had me chatting away in here. What's going on out there? What if some Wally words with our Sally Scooper gets wind on my story? They could be going to press while I'm going to waste.
The court feels your pain, Mr. Brushel. Mr. Justice, let's pick up the pace.
A certain case 7 years ago. Wait, 7 years ago? Huh? Hold it! The victim, Drew Misham, had an aversion to reporters. Boy, I guess not even my considerable charms did much for him. Until I finally got my thumbs up, that is. Maybe you can elaborate on that a bit for us? Hold it! Exactly what sort of story was this? Oh, a little one, like I said. Nothing more, nothing less, nothing in between. End quote. I might have suggested I lead on this particular story, but I didn't threaten or cajole or nothing, honest. So suggested was enough to get an interview. Mr. Misham must have really wanted to keep it under wraps. Hold it! A certain case 7 years ago. Tell us, what case? Let me state one thing, Mr. Attorney. You can quote me on this. I can't talk about that case. Why not? It's about journalistic pride and stoutness and credibility and connections. Journalist reveals sources only over his dead body. End quote. So what'll it be? Don't strangle me? Dead men don't tell tales, Mr. Attorney. He sounds pretty determined not to talk. Our chances of breaking his will aren't looking good. Hold it. On the one hand, we have your story, and on the other, this letter. What makes you think the two are related? I was just saying it's possible. Color reporter's intuition, end quote. Hey, I say a lot of things. You going to pick up all of them apart? Be my guest. All of them? No, just the incredibly suspicious ones. I see. Anything else to add about Mr. Misham? Hold it. Hold it! Just how amazing was Mr. Misham's talent? Huh? Hoo-wee, boy, I mean, hey, he's a star, man, a star. The flow of his brush is like a great undulating river across the canvas. Artist paint lights up studio like sun. End quote. The sky is full of wacky gestures, but that one just now was wackier than usual.
Looks kind of nervous to me, Apollo.
Definitely. I'm sensing something different than before here. Maybe it's time to bring out you-know-what.
That testimony left a bit... Okay.
Time to bring out the ring of justice. The ring of perceiving. Okay, come on. Come on. Boom. All right. Let's check it out here. Okay, I don't see... Okay, didn't see anything with his face. Let's explore down here. Near his arms. It's kind of tough. Wait a second here. Did I see something in here? Oh my god, he's sweating! That's disgusting! Gotcha! Jeez. He sweat when he said that. Sweat much, Mr. Brushel? A man can't help his glands, you know? It's more than that. When Mr. Misham's talent was mentioned, you suddenly began to sweat buckets. Ah! You're hiding something about his talent. What? That's ridiculous! Evidence time. Let's show where Mr. Misham's true talent lay. It just so happens I have evidence showing the talent mentioned in that letter. He's a forger. This painting was found in Mr. Misham's studio. There are two problems with this painting. The first is it wasn't painted by Mr. Misham. The second is that there was another painting in the studio, which looked exactly like this one, except it was only half done. Then we have a letter discussing a payment of $100,000, which suggests a certain business operation. The business of making forgeries. Oh! That is all, Your Honor.
Everyone, please, everyone! Can we keep this private, please? This is my story, my scoop.
Forgery. That's a serious crime.
Joe Misham is known as an artist these days, but there were rumors he dabbled in another kind of art until a few years back.
Another art meaning forgery.
Drew Misham was talented, alright. Talented at making precise, detailed fakes. A fact that certain criminal elements were quick to discover.
Criminal elements? What?
You can't seriously be talking about. Exactly. I'm talking about forging evidence. The rumors started circulating 7 years ago.
7 years ago? So are we to understand that this letter, this payment of $100,000 was for...
Exactly. Forged evidence nets tidy profit, end quote.
Does that have something to do with happening to Mr. Wright? Or Phoenix, I should say? God.
Order, order, order! Why, it's like our victim was living a double life.
This is my chance.
Hold on, I gotta stretch here.
Okay. So the victim has ties to the criminal world, right? He could have had plenty of enemies we know nothing about. This is my first time hearing of this criminal world. We certainly found no criminal connections when we conducted our investigation. So how do you explain all this money? You have to admit there's a possibility of some illegal activity here. But there is no proof tying this letter to our case. Our case was and remains simple from the beginning. Only the defendant could have poisoned that mug that night. And you, of course.
Hey, the only thing I poison is my pen when I'm writing reviews.
Mr. Brushell, your testimony to this point has been quite unreliable. It doesn't speak well of your reporting acumen.
What are you talking about? My journalism is rock solid. Journalism is so solid you could stand an elephant on it, end quote.
In any case, let's hear a summarized recap of your testimony. If we can ascertain the situation in that studio from the recap, the trial is over.
Apollo, what's he talking about?
The cross-examination showed Mr. Brushell didn't have reason or means to poison him. As long as there's no other suspects, then the killer had to be Vera, that's what. This next testimony is our last chance.
Mr. Brushell, your testimony, please.
Alright.
The only other person in the studio that night was the defendant. It was Vera who poured the coffee. She's admitted as much as herself. The only thing that touched Drew's lips during the interview was that mug. And nothing left that studio after he died. Nothing. Clearly the only one who could have poisoned him was his daughter.
A nice testimony. Clear, succinct, and without room for doubt.
Oh, shucks. You really think so?
I believe this clarifies the situation that night. Very well, Mr. Justice. You may begin your final cross-examination.
Right. I still have one trump card left to play, and I won't let this trial end until I use it.
Hold it!
But that doesn't prove Vera poisoned it. How many times have we heard that one, Hair Forehead? The poison reached his victim via the coffee mug. And from where did that coffee come, Not to beat a dead horse again and again, but perhaps you could fill us in.
I'm on it. You need a horse beat. I'm your man.
Jeez.
Hold it.
And you witnessed her pouring the coffee?
Of course I didn't witness it. When she came in with that tray, the coffee was already poured and a steaming.
Let's not forget the defendant has admitted to pouring the coffee herself. I heard a statement. I poured as served, and I killed.
What?
That last part was just a little joke. I don't think I'm going to get anywhere with this coffee mug. I need to find another weak spot in this case.
Hold it.
You're sure about that?
Well, to be really, really precise, I was busy gobbling mint candies the whole time.
One of those candies might have been poisoned. Yet at the time of the autopsy, no fresh fragrance of mint filled the room, and no mint residue was found. It was a long shot anyway. Don't tell me you're still trying to prove this. You think the victim ate, drank, or otherwise ingested something other than coffee?
Well, Mr. Justice, if you have some proof...
The possibility is there, I can feel it. Just maybe not prove it, not yet. Impossibility isn't going to cut it, not now. Mr. Misham ingested the poison via a route other than that coffee. What? Doesn't even make any sense. No, I'm not gonna risk it. It can't be proven. I do believe our little forehead is growing up. Pity, we like the rash, youthful forehead best. Oh, another hole in this case that needs plugging before I can prove anything. But first things first, I better uncover a weak spot before I try to strike again.
On with the cross-examination.
Hold it.
Not one thing, you're sure?
Yep, sure it could be. Well, with one exception.
What exception? What?
Journalist Spark Brushel does interview, leaves studio, end quote. What? Come on. It's a joke. Get it? Not funny, I know, but still.
Did somebody leave the studio that night? Why does that sound familiar? Where have I heard something like that before? Now that we've proven our witness is a comedian of sorts, I'd like to turn to our defense attorney before returning to the testimony. Do you have any idea what, if anything, might have left the studio that night?
Let's see. Let's try it.
I think one thing might very well have left the studio that night, actually. A certain something that has vanished from the crime scene. By which you mean something other than our witness? Of course.
Don't tell me. They're a mission.
Believe me, any comic relief I may provide is entirely unintentional. Then let's see what you've got for us, Mr. Justice.
Well, this thing wasn't at the scene of the crime, so I can't show it to you. But I do have evidence that shows how it could have been taken from the scene. Alright, so it's not the attorney's badge, it's not the magic show ticket, because that's ours. The envelope is ours. Varys card is ours. We have the coffee mug. We have the envelope. We've got the hidden painting. The letterbox was Drew Misham's contact with the outside world. That could have been it. Tiny frame, that was in the room. Portrait, and all these other ones were in the room. Autopsy report, no. Because this is how he sent letters out, so this, I think, someone could have just grabbed it and took it with them, since it was like hanging out like right outside of his door. Take that!
This is the only link between that studio and the outside world.
A letterbox?
What did Mr. Brushel just tell us? When he entered the studio on the night of the murder, the victim had just finished writing a letter.
Yeah, I said that, and yeah, it was true.
Furthermore, he went on to tell us that he put the letter in a yellow envelope and put it in the letterbox.
Ah,
that very same letterbox was empty. In other words, that night the yellow envelope disappeared.
Ah, yes, intriguing. So an envelope has disappeared from the scene of the crime. Of course, this changes nothing.
Huh? He has a point, Mr. Justice. What we were trying to figure out here is how the poison got into Mr. Misham. Is it really important that this envelope the witness says he saw disappeared? Well, if it did disappear, then something did leave the studio that night. That seems very important to me. Very well then, the witness will add this to his testimony.
You got it. I still think this fails to change anything, Half-Forehead.
I wouldn't be so sure. A letter disappeared from the crime scene that night. This is exactly the opening I've been looking for.
Alright, a letter was put in the post from the studio, but I hardly think that... That wasn't the thing he... Oh, here we go. This is the thing. I'm gonna touch... This is the thing that he added.
You're sure about that?
Oh, wait.
Wait a second.
Oh, yeah, I did already press that one. Mr. Misham just... Here, other than that coffee. Let's check our court record here. Ingested that poison via route other than that coffee. Oh my gosh, I didn't even notice this in the first place. This frame right here, it says, bears traces of deadly poison atroquinine, and it's right there. The blue stuff on that painting, or the frame. So it definitely could have come from there. Now I have evidence. I wasn't sure about it. Proof is possible. Here goes nothing. I thought that was the statement I had to press, and then I realized that that was the thing that had poison on it as well.
You do understand what we need, Ja? Proof, Half-Forehead, not possibilities.
Of course. And Prosecutor Gavin, I hope you understand. I'm ready to give you that proof.
What did you say?
I have proof of the disappearing envelope.
I saw him writing a letter, I did.
It was picked up by the mailman, I assume. Of course, which means that envelope had a stamp on it. A stamp? Ah! As we all know, stamps come with dried glue on the back. In order to use the glue, you have to wet it by licking the stamp.
Fact, no one worth talking to actually licks stamps in this day and age.
Even if you wanted to talk to him, you couldn't. He's dead after all.
Okay, so he licked the stamp. But wait, how does that explain the atroquinine on the rim of the coffee mug?
If you licked the back of a poison stamp, the poison would get on his tongue, yes?
What would then happen if he put the coffee mug to his mouth, Those traces on the mug weren't the killer's doing. It was the other way around.
What?
The coffee mug didn't poison Mr. Misham. Mr. Misham poisoned the coffee mug himself. So why did he drink it?
Order! But that does it?
Recall, if you would. Atropine is a slow-acting poison, yes? The poison entered his body when he put the stamp on that envelope, but his time wasn't up until the very moment he touched his lips to that cup of joe. Because it was more poison, I guess.
You have something to add, Mr. Brushel?
Uh-oh, his nose is picking up another scent. As I believe I mentioned earlier. Well, that's the thing, see? After he put his letter in that envelope, Mr. Misham sat there searching his desk drawer for something. Yes, a stamp, a so-called postage stamp. End quote. But you know, I don't seem to remember him ever finding one.
Maybe he just run out.
Incidentally, we searched the desk drawer at the scene of the crime. There were no stamps. Not a single one.
That does pose a problem. How will you prove that the stamp was coated with poison?
Actually, I'm glad no other stamps were found. It makes proving the stamp he used was poison possible.
Ha ha ha. Good show, good show. You can't even prove there was a stamp at the scene in the first place.
Well, let's hear what the defense has to say anyway. Where's your evidence that proves the existence of this poison stamp?
Poison stamp was once again the tiny frame which also has the poison on it. Take that! That's why we pressed that we had to prove it.
Well, it certainly is a cute little frame, and by little, I mean really little.
It was on the victim's desk, Your Honor. Quite empty, as you can see for yourself.
I noticed that too during my inspection. So what?
Apparently you weren't so as observant as you should have been. You see, when you saw this frame, it was missing something quite important.
Missing something?
Yes, a pale bluish stain on the inside of the frame. Atroquinine residue.
What? Why wasn't I told about this?
The frame is only 2 inches square. The face of the frame is even smaller. Maybe an inch wide at most.
You aren't saying?
Oh, but I am. Tell me, what fits in such a small frame? A commemorative stamp, perhaps?
Oh yeah, baby. Order! The poison stamp was in this frame.
Impossible.
Prosecutor Gavin?
Why would he put something like that on his desk? Don't tell me he had it there just so he could commit suicide of the mood struck.
You know, can I say something? I had a thought, see?
What, Mr. Brushel? Please stop jittering around like that.
The victim was a forger, right? There's a lot of money in that line of work. Forger forges friends. Makes enemies, too. End quote. So the poison stamp must have been a murder weapon aimed at him.
Oh, rich. That's rich. Leave the ridiculous flights of fancy to the cavalier song lyrics, please.
Finally, something we agree on.
The stamp was a murder weapon. Nonsense. Murder is just a simple business. Who would go to such lengths? No one.
Oh, I disagree.
Come again?
Recall, if you would, the victim's reclusive lifestyle. Drew Misham hid from this world. He avoided meetings. His only contact with the outside world was the mail.
The mail?
Now, if you wanted to kill someone you couldn't meet, but you knew red letters, a stamp would be the perfect weapon.
Ridiculous. Where's your proof? I want proof. Show us evidence that this poison stamp was sent to him as a murder weapon.
I might not have evidence, per se, but things are finally starting to come together.
What is it, Apollo? Your fists are trembling.
I think I know what happened. I don't believe it, but I can see it. I think I know how Mr. Misham was killed.
Well, fill us in, Mr. Justice.
A certain piece of evidence points to the truth, Your Honor. I could show you how someone with the intent to kill sent Mr. Misham the stamp of death. It's the red envelope. At first I thought it had something to do with blackmail. Mr. Drew Misham, I have deposited the $100,000 in the designated account. Please send a receipt once you've confirmed the transfer. Sign the papers and send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 7 days. 7? I think so. Or 9 days. I need not remind you to speak of this to no one. So, I would think he was blackmailed.
Isn't this the envelope? The one from 7 years ago?
Think about the text of this letter again. There were 2 pages in the envelope. This is page 1.
And this is page 2. I want to draw your attention to one phrase in particular. Send in the enclosed envelope with the enclosed stamp within 3 days. Or 3 days. The enclosed stamp, Your Honor. Ah! In other words, if I had to streak the stamp, poison on the stamp, lick, lick, gasp. End quote. Now, what if he had done exactly as the letter asked?
He would sign the document, put it in the envelope, and put the stamp on it, right? Then he would put it in his letterbox.
15 minutes wouldn't have elapsed between affixing the stamp and mailing the letter, but the clock started ticking, and when the time came, he drew his last breath, and the murder weapon would be taken away from the scene. Quite conveniently, thanks to the postal system.
Such a splendid imagination you have, Hair Forehead. Let me confirm one thing with you, if I might. So, this poison stamp was inside this envelope from 7 years ago. Ja? Is that what you'd have us believe? Really?
Well,
it is a little bit of a stretch, but there's a possibility. Yes, a very small possibility. How small, I wonder? A poison stamp in this envelope? A stamp that then became the murder weapon? How do you intend to prove this seeming coincidence? Well,
it was 7 years ago, and we don't even know who sent that letter.
And your answer is silence, I see. Very well. I move to...
It's not nice to pick on the Fraulein clavier.
What?
Oh!
Oh wait, what? What the heck was that? Wait, that was his... What? I don't know.
Emma. Oh my god.
Well, like my Christoph Gavin impression, did I sound like him?
Don't quit your day job.
Don't you have a crime scene to be looking after, Fraulein detective? Someone had to kind of dig you out of the mess you're making of this case.
Mess?
You know, none of this would happen if you just trusted in science a little more. You could find out if that stamp was in that envelope. Easy. Care to explain yourself, Fraulein detective? Glare at me all you want, but science is on my side. It's all in the residue, right?
That's right. The poison detection spray. Produce the red envelope at once. You can open it on the authority in the court. Alright, time to spray this sucker.
Oh, here we go.
Booyah! Boom. Well, would you look at that?
No mistaking it. That's atraquinin residue.
Oh yeah, baby. Power of science. I don't believe it. A murder weapon from the past. Now 7 years later, it bears its fangs at last.
Absolutely outrageous. Tell me why. Why didn't this murder take place 7 years ago?
Well,
There's one possibility. Maybe Mr. Mission figured it out.
Figured what out? Alright. We've made a lot of progress. Let's go ahead and save.
He realized that the person who sent that letter wanted him dead, so he sent his reply with a different stamp.
And put his decisive evidence in a frame? Ah, you're still here.
Can I make a statement here on the record? I spark respirators to Brussels and claim the scoop is mine. Drew Mission killed in cold blood. Bystander of 7-year-old letter. End quote. No, maybe something more succinct. Star falls after 7-year delay. End quote.
Order, order, order! I see no room for further argument here, though I admit this is all coming as quite a shock. To think that the murder weapon reached his mouth after 7 years. Stamp his ticket straight to afterlife. End quote.
Uh-oh, I think the witness is a bad influence on our judge.
I see no need for further debate on this matter. The sender of that letter 7 years ago could hardly have been our defendant.
Apollo?
I think we just won. Very well, this court finds the defendant...
Oh my god! Hate you! Is this the bright future of our legal system?
Prosecutor Gavin?
A ticket to the afterlife from 7 years ago. Tickets for Gavin's shows are invalid after 2 weeks.
But it doesn't make sense any other way.
It boggles my mind that so many people haven't noticed this. There's a fatal contradiction in Hair Forehead's claim.
A contradiction?
A poison stamp was placed in this envelope 7 years ago, whereupon it was framed until now. If that's the case, then why would Mr. Drew Misham have done... Why did I say Mr.? Drew Misham have done what he done?
Emma explained that. He must have realized that it was poison.
Therein lies the rub. 7 years ago, the forger Drew Misham sensed a trap and put the stamp in a frame. I do not debate this, but this begs the question. Why 7 years later did he use that stamp on the night of the murder? Surely you don't mean to suggest that Mr. Misham simply forgot. He put the murder weapon in a frame on his desk for 7 years ago. For 7 years and forgot, sorry. You expect us to believe that he sprang the trap on himself?
While I admit this is all quite shocking myself, it does seem highly unlikely that he would fall afoul of a trap that had been sitting on his desk for 7 years.
Apollo?
I don't think we're winning anymore.
Oh, I'm glad to see we're all back in the real world now. Welcome back to reality. We've been waiting for you.
Okay, then how do you explain the poison stamp that was in this envelope?
The poison stamp? What exactly is this poison stamp again? Have you brought it to court for us? I see no proof that such a thing ever existed.
What about the atropine residue, huh?
Oh, I agree, that does seem to be atropine residue. But, Herr Forehead, it's certainly no stamp.
Yeah, but
even if your precious poison stamp did exist, Drew Misham never would have used it. That is all.
I believe we've come to the conclusion, again.
Apollo, were we wrong the whole time?
I can't believe it. The poison traces match up. It can't be coincidence. I'd like to bring some closure to this issue, sometime this year. Mr. Justice? Yes, Your Honor. Let's review the facts and see where we stand. 7 years ago, Drew Misham received a red envelope. There were traces of the poison atropine on the document inside that envelope. A similar trace was also found at the crime scene, on this tiny picture frame. The defense has indicated the possibility of a yellow envelope. An envelope that left the scene of the crime with the poison stamp on it.
Yes, but even if this envelope contained a poison stamp, and Drew Misham, knowing this, put it in a frame, he never would have used that stamp.
I'm afraid you're right, which means there is a fatal flaw in the defense's case. I haven't been on the wrong track this whole time, I'm sure of it. The traces of atropine, the envelope, the frame, and Drew Misham's mysterious death, they're all connected somehow. Well, Mr. Justice, do you have a conclusion for us? The defense stands by its case, Your Honor. We've seen that the logical outcome of the evidence makes no sense, which means that one of our clues must be a fake.
Ah, fake clue. Fascinating. And if we find this fake, your wild fantasies will prove quite reasonable, Jean.
The fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than...
Wait, the fake clue that's thrown us off the poison's trail is none other than the red envelope, the frame, or Drew Misham. It's definitely Drew Misham.
The victim was a fake clue? I'm afraid I don't understand. I'll explain. We have an envelope, a frame, and a mug linked by poison. That all makes sense. What doesn't make sense is the victim himself.
Congratulations, you've completely lost me. So the fake evidence is none other than the master of fake himself, the forger. It makes a good story, I'll give you that.
The fake clue. Fakes. Forgeries.
Ah, I know that face, that's the I just had an idea face.
I don't know if I'm right, but I'm going with it anyway. What if our forger is the fake?
Come again?
7 years ago, our forger sniffed a trap and stepped aside. 7 years passed. Now the forger stumbles into that very same trap and dies. Why? That's what I want to know. Because the forger who was killed was a fake.
Here we are again. The victim was a fake.
One forger smelled the trap. One forger fell into the trap. That's two forgers, and one of them was a fake. Ha ha! Order!
So you won't tell us that Drew Misham, the victim, was a fake? Well, if he was the fake, who was the real forger? You better not be claiming there was some kind of switcheroo.
I'm afraid you're going to have to back up your story. Mr. Justice, show us just who the real Drew Misham was. If Drew Misham wasn't the real forger, there's only one other person it could have been. Understood, Your Honor. Forger Drew Misham was himself a forgery. The real forger was...
The only other person that was there that could have been Vera.
There can only be one explanation, really. The real identity of the forger known as Drew Misham is none other than... his only daughter, Vera Misham. Order! Mr. Justice, this is going out on a limb, even for you.
I can't agree. I mean, Vera, a forger?
Let's consider it before you write it off entirely. If you look at the paintings in the studio, one fact becomes quite clear. Forgery had been taking place in that studio for quite some time. The forger wasn't caught in that trap 7 years ago. This can only mean that the one who was caught in the trap wasn't the forger. Well, actually, that does make a certain kind of sense.
One more thing. Only 2 sets of fingerprints were found in the forger's studio. True missions and their emissions. If we knew that Drew Mission was the forger, that leaves only one possibility by process of elimination. The forger was Veramisham. Well, what a fool.
Fascinating.
Veramisham, you've been paying attention to the trial so far?
Let's just ask her and be done with it, shall we? Who are you? Who is the forger, Drew Misham?
Was that an expression of emotion I saw in her face? She's staring holes into Prosecutor Gavin's face.
I'm used to being stared at by Frauleins, believe me. Though they usually talk to me too. Tell us, were you the one who forged those works of art? Yes.
So the forger Drew Misham was you?
Yes, it was me.
What?
Oh my god. That leads us even way down the dirt. The court was in an uproar, and it wasn't coming down. We had to break for a 10-minute recess. Oh my god, what a weird way to pause. Alright. So are we done with court today? We'll go ahead and save and see if we are. Nope, we're still in it. Alright, so tomorrow we will be heading right back into the courtroom and continuing on with solving this final case of Apollo Justice Ace Attorney. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you guys in my next video coming soon. Objection!